everybody. Welcome to another episode from Your Own Pathway. For those who don't know me, my name is Poiab. I'm a licensed psychotherapist turned empowerment life coach, organizational leadership consultant, where I bring my experience, my expertise, and my knowledge to empower all of you to forge your own path and to own it. One of the things being a therapist who specializes in grief and loss and trauma, one of the things that I really noticed was when clients, they went through a lot of trauma, grown up, they didn't have the best childhood, the parents weren't there, they were abusive physically, emotionally, psychologically, whatever it is. And so I'm working with my clients on a lot of this. However, one thing that I also realized and really worked with my clients on was the fact that their victimhood became their identity. And today's episode is going to discuss the trap of victimhood and when your story becomes your excuse and unfortunately your identity. So let's get right into it. This is something hard but necessary, and that is victimhood. Yes, unfortunately, bad things happen. And bad things happen to a lot of us, to the majority of us. But we're not here today to compare who has it worse. Trauma is real. And here's also the truth: you can only stay in victimhood and victim mode for so long before it stops being protection and starts being an excuse. If you've been saying this, why can't I, or this is why I can't for years, it's not just the story holding you back, it's your attachment to it. So, part one, the reality of victimhood. Again, I want to be clear. I want to be clear that victimhood is real. Bad things happen. People are abused, people are abandoned, people are betrayed. And trauma is real. Injustice is real. Oppression is real. When those things happen, claiming victimhood is not a weakness, it's language. It's naming the harm that was done so you don't carry the burden in silence or carry it alone. Being able to say, you know what, I was wronged, or I was hurt, or I did not deserve this, that's powerful. For many people, it's the first step toward breaking denial and finding healing. But here is where it gets tricky. Victimhood is supposed to be a stage, not a permanent identity. It's part of your story, but not your whole story. So, why do people get stuck here? Why do people get stuck in this story? Because victimhood can feel safe. When you're in victim mode, you don't have to risk trying again. You don't have to risk failing again. You don't have to risk trusting or being hurt. And sometimes victimhood even gets you rewarded. How? Well, usually people comfort you, they excuse you. I've heard that one a lot. They lower your expectations, and sympathy can feel like a connection. If you are not careful, victimhood stops being a wound you heal from and starts becoming a wall that you hide behind. So let's move on to part two. When victimhood becomes an excuse. We're going in deep right now. Here is the uncomfortable truth. At some point, victimhood can shift from being survival to being an excuse. So, how does this exactly sound like? Here are some examples. I can't trust anyone because of my past. I'll never succeed because of what happened to me. No one understands me, so why even try? At first, those statements come from pain, but repeated enough, they become scripts, excuses, and excuses feel way safer than accountability. Excuses feel safer than possibility. If I or you choose to stay the victim, we don't have to face rejection. We don't have to risk failure, and we certainly don't have to risk being vulnerable. Again, victimhood becomes a protective wall. But you know what it is? It's a prison cell. But here's the kicker, though. Here's the kicker. Life will always give you evidence to stay a victim if you're looking for it. This could be in the form of bad relationships, unfair systems, painful reminders, and guess what? They're all real. They're all real. Life will always give you evidence to stay a victim if you're looking for it. This could be a bad relationship, unfair systems, and painful reminders. Because you know what? They're all real. They are all real. But if you use them to reinforce your story of defeat, you'll never step into your power. I'll say that again. If you use them to reinforce your story of defeat, you'll never step into your story of power. At some point, what happened stops being a reason and starts being an excuse. And excuses do not set you free. What they do is they keep you stuck. So, part three of being trapped in victimhood is, what is the cost of being a victim? What does it really cost to stay in victim mode? It's actually a lot more than you think. What it does is it keeps you stuck in old wounds. Every new chapter, every new book is overshadowed by an old one. And you know what happens? You stop writing fresh pages. It blocks relationships. People either feel forced to rescue you or they eventually pull away when the story never changes. How many of us, how many of you had said, you know what, to someone who has the same drama, the same shit, it's the same thing over and over? At some point, you think, I can't be around this person. They're always the victim. It's always other people. Nothing seems to change. And that's when we decide, okay, you know what? I have to step back. If you're that person who is always in the same cycle, you may have noticed that people are stepping away from you. Hard and something to look at. It also sabotages opportunities. Victimhood whispers, don't bother. You'll just fail again. So you know what you do? You stop trying. I've talked about this. It reinforces fear. Why? Because you live in survival mode. You're always anticipating the next harm instead of creating joy. It robs you of authorship. What is the greatest cost out of this? You hand the pen of your life over to the very people or systems that hurt you. You're not the author of your life. As a matter of fact, you're giving them the pen, the paper, the computer, the laptop, wherever it is. You're giving them permission to write your screen. You're like what? Screenwrite. The cost of clinging to victimhood is your life. Your pain becomes your identity, and your past becomes your prison. So, how do we shift? How do we shift from being a victim to a survivor and creator? Victimhood may be part of your story, but it does not have to be your whole story or your identity. So, here are the stages. First stage is victim. This happened to me. You name it, that's valid, but it's not the destination. Second is you are a survivor. As I'm saying this, I'm hearing Destiny's Child, I'm a survivor, I'm a forgiver. That's right. You are a survivor. And this says, I lived through it. So you honor your strength. You stop defining yourself only by the wound. The third step is you become the creator. This says, I'm shaping what happens next. You reclaim authorship. You take back that pen, you take back that laptop, you take back whatever it is that you're writing your story. You take all of that back. And you decide how the next chapter or the book of your life unfolds. Shifting from victim to creator doesn't mean pretending that it never happened. As a matter of fact, it means you honor the pain, but you don't worship it. You acknowledge the wound, but refuse to live inside it. You let your past inform you, not imprison you. So, victimhood is the chapter, survivor is the bridge, and creator is the damn sequel. So, you can claim victimhood for a season, but not a lifetime. At some point, the excuse becomes your prison. And here is the truth. Here's the truth. What happened to you may not be your fault. As a matter of fact, it's not your fault. However, by choosing to stay stuck in it is no longer their power, and it's your choice. You have choices. We all have free will. And it's up to you to decide how you want to define yourself. So stop waiting. Stop waiting for someone to hand you freedom. Stop letting your past hold the pen. Own your story, own your healing, and own your next chapter. And especially, I like to call it your next book. I no longer do chapters, I say book. Cut chapters, you can easily go back. Books, nope, new books are there for you. Because you are not what happened to you. I'll say it again. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose next to do. Okay? That was one mic drop right there. And that is all I have for today. Again, we all have choices. We all have choices. There are a lot of things that we cannot control, and there are a lot of things that we can control. We can't control that we were a victim. However, we can control what we choose to do with that experience. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If this episode hit you, or if you're someone who used to really define who you were, your path, by what happened to you, and you decided, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore, and you found the strength to empower yourself and to forge your own path, share your story in the comments section. So that is all I have for all of you today. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful week. As always, stay safe and stay well. Bye.